Have you ever stopped to think about why you make the choices you do? We like to think we're in the driver's seat, but what if I told you there are hidden forces, invisible scripts, that are shaping your decisions before you even make them? Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at the hidden architecture of choice.
Okay, so first up, let's take a quick trip inside our own minds. We need to understand the machinery that's running the show, especially when we think we're the ones in complete control.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're in a store, you're scrolling online, and you make a call. Maybe it's a new phone, a vacation, heck, even just a bag of chips. And at that moment, it feels like the most logical decision in the world. But then, later that day, or maybe the next morning, you get that little pang of, why that one?
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't you being irrational. Your brain wasn't having an off day. It was actually doing its job perfectly. See, to get through a world that throws millions of little decisions at us every single day, our brain needs an autopilot system. It needs to take shortcuts.
Psychologists have a word for these shortcuts: heuristics. You could just think of them as mental rules of thumb. They're what help us make quick, pretty good judgments without getting totally paralyzed by analyzing every single detail. And honestly, they're essential. But here's the catch. Because these shortcuts are predictable, they can be influenced.
So, who figured all this out? This wasn't just some random discovery. It took a couple of absolutely brilliant minds to challenge everything we thought we knew about how we make decisions.
For the longest time, especially in economics, the prevailing idea was that humans were perfectly rational. You know, these logical beings who always make choices in their own best interest. But if you've ever watched people, you know that's not the whole story. Even early on, thinkers like John F. Nash saw that in the real world, our behavior is way more complex, guided by gut feelings and instincts. The models were neat, but reality was messy.
And this is where our two heroes enter the picture: Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They were two Israeli psychologists who started working together in the late 1960s, and their partnership became the stuff of legend. People said they were practically inseparable, and together they were about to completely change how we see the human mind.
Their collaboration was so central to the work that when Kahneman won the Nobel Prize for it in 2002, he made it crystal clear that the prize truly belonged to both of them. Tversky had tragically passed away a few years earlier, so he couldn't share the honor, but his legacy was right there, forever linked with Kahneman's.
So what did they actually show us? Well, they identified these things called cognitive biases. These are just the predictable patterns, the glitches in our thinking, that happen because of those mental shortcuts. And to show you just how powerful this is, let's look at a classic example that you've probably fallen for without even realizing it: the decoy effect.
Okay, imagine you're signing up for a magazine subscription. You see two options. You've got online access for $59, and then you have online plus print access for $125. Now that's a tough choice, right? You're trying to figure out if the print version is really worth that extra cash. Faced with this, most people just go for the cheaper option. But now, watch this. A third option gets added to the mix. Print access only for $125. Now wait a second. Why would anyone choose that? You can get print and online for the exact same price. This option is what we call the decoy. It's a purposefully bad deal, and its only job is to change how you see the other two. And all of a sudden, the whole calculation in your head shifts. The online plus option doesn't look expensive anymore. Compared to the terrible print-only deal, it looks like an absolute steal. And the result? By adding that one seemingly useless decoy, the economists saw a staggering 43% jump in revenue, all because people were nudged towards that pricier bundle.
And look, this isn't just some quirky academic finding. This stuff, understanding our brain's little biases, has become the engine of modern marketing, product design, and even public policy.
Companies can use these insights to prime us, to subtly plant an idea or a feeling in our minds that makes us more likely to buy what they're selling. Some have even called it a behavioral pump. It creates this gentle, invisible current that pulls our choices in a certain direction, and we usually have no idea it's even happened.
And these nudges are absolutely everywhere. Once you start looking, you see them all the time. You get a free sample at a store? That's reciprocity. You feel a tiny bit indebted. You sign up for a free trial? That's the endowment effect. Suddenly it feels like you own it, and it's much harder to let go. That low minimum payment on your credit card bill? That's an anchor, making a small payment seem reasonable. Love one of Apple's products? The halo effect makes you trust all their other stuff. It's a real thing. And of course, there's overconfidence. All those ads that make you think you'll get professional results with their product? Yeah, that's a nudge too.
Now, in the 21st century, these very human quirks have a new and incredibly powerful partner in crime: artificial intelligence. This is where our little mental glitches go digital, and they get scaled up on a global level.
As AI researcher Joy Buolamwini so brilliantly puts it, this isn't some slow-moving problem. A biased AI model can be created in a lab somewhere, and then downloaded and used around the world in an instant. The bias spreads at the speed of the internet.
A lot of us think of algorithms as being objective, right? Like they're pure math, so they can escape our flawed human biases. But that's a huge misunderstanding. An AI doesn't have its own opinions. It's just a mirror reflecting the data we feed it. So if our data is biased, the algorithm becomes biased. But unlike a person, an algorithm can apply that bias millions of times a second, amplifying the mistake on a massive scale.
Here's a perfect example of this in the real world. A lot of early facial recognition systems were trained on data from what researchers call weird populations. That's Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. The result? These systems often struggle to accurately identify women and people of color because the training data wasn't representative of humanity. The AI isn't being malicious, it's just working with an incomplete picture of the world we gave it.
So, this all sounds a bit daunting, doesn't it? What can we actually do about it? We're all wired this way, and these nudges are everywhere. Well, the key isn't to try to rewire our brains. The key is awareness.
Look, you can't just turn off your brain's autopilot, and you wouldn't want to. It's super useful. The goal here is just to get better at knowing when to switch over to manual control. It's about becoming a more mindful consumer, a more critical thinker, and learning to spot the moments when someone else might be trying to nudge your steering wheel.
So, let's make this practical. Here's a simple mental checklist you can run through before your next big choice. First, try to spot the anchor. Is there an initial number or suggestion that's framing how you think about everything else? Second, look for the decoy. Is there a really bad option that's just there to make another one look amazing? Third, check the default. Is the pre-checked box or the easiest path really the best one for you? And finally, and this is the big one, ask yourself, who benefits from me making this choice?
At the end of the day, our choices are never made in a total vacuum. They're a dance between our own internal wiring and an outside world that has gotten very, very good at speaking our brain's language. So maybe true freedom of choice isn't about escaping influence entirely, because that's impossible. Maybe it's about understanding it. Thanks for tuning in.